James, would you like to introduce yourself and then start your presentation?
You'd like me to introduce myself and do the presentation?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, my name is James Mooney. I'm a representative of the indigenous cultures of North, South, and Central America, and I'm I don't speak for the Salt Lake Roundtable Forum, but I am honored to be part of that organization because they're really doing some really good things. Well, I really thought about the topic here, and I was wondering how am I supposed to present the dietary practices of the indigenous people of North and Central and South America. And I think I'm going to start off like this. I'm going to say one, in the people that I am going to talk about, the indigenous people, cancer is totally foreign to them. They have no cancer at all. But these are indigenous people that I'm talking to you about that live in the wilderness, such as the Kogis of South America and the Huicholes of Mexico. And I'm going to talk about the Tarahumaras, which is also in New Mexico, and they live in the Sierra Madre mountain range of Mexico, very isolated where they live. And I was invited to do some ceremonies with these people. And there ended up being about 400 of these indigenous American native medicine people from South America, Central America, and North America. And I knew about the Tarahumara's. They are known as runners. And so the most of the Native Americans that were invited to this from America and Canada, um, they got horses to bring these people in and the belongings and the camping out. And at this particular one that I'm describing, we're 500 miles from anywhere. I mean, we're in the boonies, okay? And I knew about these Tarahumars that were runners, and they can run 100 miles and it means nothing, okay? And I'm going to end up telling the story about a person that's an 80-year-old man. And but anyway, most of the American Indians had horses that they were able to pack their belongings into the ceremonial area, which is about close to 20 miles away. I mean, it was where the cars where the vehicles that brought us came to a plateau next to well, there's a plateau, and we came from a small village that had a telephone operation once a week. I mean, that's how isolated this is. And then we had to drive from that village to this plateau, which took us about 3 or 4 hours. And so at the plateau, they had horses for most of the American Indians, and I didn't want to ride a horse in. I said I brought my backpack, and I was a runner, a prolific runner, to be frank with you. And I knew about the Tarahumaras as being runners, and so I I declined the horse, and I said, I'd really like to have a Tarahumara to run with and show me the way to get to this place, or to the ceremonial grounds, which is about 22 miles away. Well, anyway, they gave me this kid. I mean, he must have been 19, 20 years old. I couldn't speak his language and he couldn't speak English, So everything was done by hand, or follow me, like he would say, type of a thing. And so we'd take off, and we're about 1/3 of the way down. And all of a sudden, he stopped at this place, and there were a lot of little corn cobs, little things. And he reached into his pouch that he carried with him, and that's what they all do. They carry this pouch, and they have different food items in that. And I noticed where he stopped, there were a lot of corn cobs of these little corn, and he just handed it to me to eat. And so I did, and I had a hard time finishing 3 bites of this thing. You could feel the corn kind of explode in my mouth if it had so much energy. And I mean, I just, and it took me a minute or so to actually finish that little corn cob. And so I'm running, and we're running. We start taking off again, and all of a sudden, he would point. He'd turn around and look at me, and he'd point at something. And it was usually some kind of a bush. And then there were times that he would, and it was green. Quite often he would point at green, something green. And then when we were going up a hill, or not a hill, I mean, it's treacherous, this place in the Sierra Madre mountain range. I mean, it's just treacherous. But we're going up a hill, then he'd point at something that looked like it was red. And so he would go like that, and but he would turn around and point, so that it really made some kind of an impression on me. And then about 2/3, yeah, we're about 2/3 on this run. And all of a sudden he stops at this bush, and he picked a couple pods off of this. Actually, it was a tree, and he picked 2 of them, and he said, "Put it in your mouth, but don't swallow." And so I put it in my mouth, and we continued to run, and we showed up at this big plateau type of a thing, where there was about 300 or 400 of these indigenous medicine people. And I mean, I can't speak anybody's language but my own, and things like that. But in this ceremony for 7 days, okay, they had a large table, and on the table, they had two kind of stoves, and one had beans, and another had potatoes. That was it. And then they had a little red, some kind of a sauce, and some salt. And that was it. And for 7 days, and then these women would be sitting on the ground, and the way they dug a hole in, a slanted hole into the ground, and put a plate over the top of it, and a metal plate. And they had corn, and they used an instrument of some kind to grind it all up. And then they added water and something else to it, and they made these tortillas, and they put the tortillas on these things. And there was usually 3 women that were always making up these tortillas 24/7, because it was a 7-day ceremony. And then so they put the tortillas on this table, and you had the abilities to put the beans on the tortilla, and also then you had a potato, and you could put salt or the things, and that's all we ate of 300 or 400 people for 7 days. And it was so interesting. I never got hungry. I was never hungry. I mean, you could just go anytime you felt like it. You just go to the table. There was nothing like a breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It was just when you felt hungry, you just went and got some food. And I thought that was just really interesting because after I evaluated it, I never was hungry. I mean, you know how you feel like I got to have something to eat or something like that, and you got to go make it, and that was totally non-existent, non-existent. Well, shortly after that, or at the 7th day, they had a dance, and it was called the deer dance. And what this deer dance was about is that they put the best runner in the whole area. They put a a some antlers, like a new male deer, and like antlers on this the best runner in the whole place on his head, and then they wrapped a tail or wrapped something around his waist with a deer's tail. And so the whole game started at sunset when the sun went down, and people, all the young guys or all the other Indians, there's about, I think there was about 20. And the whole purpose of the game was that people to catch this deer. And watching 500 Indians laughing their heads off because these kids or these people could not catch this guy. And every once in a while, he would, and you could tell he allowed them to catch him, allowed them. And they'd bring it into the center of the ceremonial area, and then he would escape, and everybody would just laugh. This went on from sunset to when the sun started coming up. And when the sun started to come up, he let them catch him. And then they brought him into the center and symbolically killed him. He was actually a representative of Jesus Christ. The deer is symbolic to Jesus Christ, and they'll tell you that. That's it, and it represents him sacrificing himself on the cross. And there's a real lesson to that because he let them catch him, and because you knew they couldn't catch the guy. Okay. Well, anyway, so after that ceremony, the next day we broke up, and I guess it was on the 6th day, and I'm running up this hill. I know the way to get back now, and so I took off from before anybody and everybody else did, and I noticed that I'm halfway up, and I think I sit down and take a little rest, and all of a sudden I see this guy that was the runner going up the hill, and as he's passing me, he goes like this to me with a big smile on his face, and he has his grandson. This man is 80 years old. 80 years old. And he was the best runner in the entire area. I got home, and it was about a month or so, it dawned on me all these different things that I never got tired running. And I thought about, I only had 2 things on the entire run. It was about 20 miles. Nothing but that little corn cob and those pods he gave me. And then all of a sudden I understood a real beautiful lesson is that he would sense that I was getting tired. He would sense I was getting tired, and he would point at something green that was healing, and that I would breathe in the energy of the plants. And when I was going up a hill, it dawned on me he was pointing at something red, telling me, you got to really pick it up. The lessons that I learned on your diet from that 7 days
Yeah.
is unbelievable.
Thank you so much, James. Yeah.